Hi, I'm Thomas Ray. I'm going to look at the fan critique of MLB and NBA salaries. For those of you that don't know, MLB stands for Major League Baseball, and NBA stands for the National Basketball Association. I'm going to give a brief overview of the history of baseball and basketball to start off with. Baseball, as you know, was kind of a sport where just individuals got together with friends and they would kind of just play in the backyard or on a sand lot. Nothing really fancy, and you can look on TV now or go to a major league stadium, and these stadiums are built and they're beautiful. They have natural green grass. Everything's mowed perfect. It's like completely changed since what it was. Major League Baseball started in 1871 is when it was founded. It really didn't gain popularity until around the 1920s when Babe Ruth was a major league player. The reason for this is Babe Ruth was a really charismatic individual and he brought a lot of fans to the ballpark, which therefore gained MLB tons of publicity and popularity. Another big figure in baseball is Jackie Robinson, who broke the color barrier in 1947. Before he was part of the MLB, he was actually part of the Negro League, which was a league specifically for blacks because of the Civil War and everything that was going on. Blacks and whites couldn't play together. So after he came into the league in 1947, shortly after the Negro League fell apart in 1951, um, players actually in the MLB didn't have power over their contract before the 1970s. Whenever they would sign a contract, the owners of the team kind of had the rights to the individuals in a way. They decided when they wanted to get traded, if they were going to get traded, for how much money, so on and so forth. So the players really didn't have any control over their contract until after 1970. Now going on to a brief history of basketball. Basketball actually became a sport just like baseball, where it was kids playing with other kids, just trying to have an activity. Um, basketball is actually basketball is a winter sport mostly, and this is because kids didn't have a sport to play in the winter because of the weather, so they needed an indoor sport, and basketball was the answer for it. The NBA was founded in 1946. Um, like I said before, basketball used to be kind of a winter sport, but now since it's an indoor sport, and of course there are outdoor basketball courts, but they're mostly indoor, basketball turned into a game that can be played all year round, which is something different from a lot of the other sports because a lot of the other sports, their stadiums are ginormous and huge when a basketball court can just fit in a gymnasium and everybody's protected. So now I will go on to the salaries of baseball players. According to an article from Brown, he looked at the New York Yankees payroll in 1920 to about 1941. The payroll, the highest paid payroll, the highest or the payroll for 1920 was $114. By 1940, the overall payroll for the New York Yankees went up to $304. This is nothing compared to what it is now, where things are in the millions. But that just shows you over the 20 years that it became a part of the history, or the 20 years of the research, basketball or baseball jumped up $200 in payroll salary. Also, according to his research, for every hit a player got that was more than what they got the previous year, it would bump up their salary 0.043%. Every home run a person hit bumped their salary up 1.2%. Um, so that's something where every year salaries are getting boosted up and boosted up. For pitchers, it's kind of different. Normally, you look at pitchers as ERAs, which are earned run average, but the New York Yankees looked at the innings pitched, and for every inning a pitcher pitched more, it boosted up his salary 1.5%. The Yankees were able to increase their payroll every year because of the revenue that they were getting from the stadium and the events and everything, according to Brown. Um, there is no correlation through the research, though, that says high paid salaries will equal a better win percentage, according to Nelson. Nelson says payroll alone is not the sole factor in creating and building a successful baseball team. So this being said, that's why a lot of the baseball teams, you'll have star players that are worth a lot of money. There's a few reasons for this. One, the star players will bring in media attention, or will bring in a lot more fans than an average player. So that helps with the stadium and the revenue of the organization and how much money they're getting and everything. The other aspect to that is if you have a high paid person on the team, everybody else on the team normally is going to do better to try and become that high paid player. So it kind of builds up it kind of makes them want to do better in order to get a better salary. The MLB does not have a salary cap. Instead, it has a luxury tax. And the luxury tax threshold for the 2016 season that just ended was $178 million. This is a ridiculous amount of money. But at the same time, the way the luxury tax works, every year there's a threshold. If a team goes over that threshold, they have to pay the MLB a certain amount of money. So for the first year a team goes over the threshold, they have to pay 30% of their payroll. So whatever it might be, they could spend 200 million on players. They would have to pay back 30% of that to the MLB. If they go over the threshold again a second year in a row, that gets bumped up to 40%. What happens to that money that the MLB generates is actually 50% of it goes back to the MLB and helps with the funding and everything they do. 25% of that money goes to funding for baseball in developmental countries. So it kind of gives them a fund for kids to get a glove or a baseball or build stadiums or whatever it might be. And then the other 25% goes into the industry growth fund. So another part of salaries and everything people don't, or baseball compensation that people don't take into granted that much, are bonus and medical benefits, which MLB players do get. A few bonuses that players will get. One is a signing bonus. Whenever they sign to a team, they are automatically given a signing bonus. The signing bonus depends on what the organization feels like the player is worth or their talent or anything. So the signing bonus, there is no specific signing bonus amount. It varies all over the place. Players also receive individual performances. If they get an MVP or the Rookie of the Year, they'll naturally get a bonus for accomplishing that. And then teams that make it into the World Series will get another bonus because the postseason and the media attention that the team gets and everything helps with the revenue. Players do receive medical benefits. All players will get a 401k when they sign with a contract. Players will also receive a pension after being 43 days on the active roster. The active roster pretty much means that they are eligible to play. They're not hurt or in a different league or anything like that. Being on the active roster means that they can play whenever they want to. The coach might put them in, might not. So after 43 days, they're able to start putting back money for their pension. There are two different types that a player can do. They could do pre-tax or post-tax for their pension. Pretty much that means that they'll get their money, and if they do pre-tax, they'll put aside some of that money before the taxes of their salary. They'll put some of that money of their salary away for the pension before taxes are taken out. And then naturally post-tax would mean after taxes are taken out, they take a select amount of money from their salary and put it towards the pension. And as soon as a player is on the 1-day active roster, they are qualified for lifetime health care through the MLB, according to Holdridge. Now we'll move on to the salaries of NBA players. In 1991, according to Ducking, the league minimum was 120,000. By 2009, the rookie league minimum was 442,000, with the veteran league minimum reaching over $1 million. Now, the reason for the minimum rookie and then the minimum veteran is because in 1996 there was a collective bargain agreement between players and the NBA, and pretty much that said they didn't want just one league minimum. They wanted to divide it up to rookies, which rookies are somebody that are this is the first year in the NBA, and veterans are somebody that has 10 years of experience under their belt. So that's why after 1996 you'll see league minimums for rookies and then veteran minimums. Um, in 2009, according to the article as well, somebody who has 1 year of experience would make roughly 270,000 more than a rookie entering into the league. That being said, there is no correlation of the salary that would make players have a longer career in the NBA. Through that article, it just basically said that the duration of the time a player stays in the NBA has nothing to do with how much money they will get after so many years. It really comes down to what the player wants to do and medical reasons and everything like that. There is a salary max for an individual. The salary max for somebody of 7 years is 25% of the salary cap. Somebody who has experience of 0 to 7 years will get a salary max of 25% of the salary cap of the year before. So somebody who has experience from 7 to 10 years will get 30% of the salary cap of the year before, and somebody, a veteran who has 10 plus years, can get 35% of the salary cap before. So those are the max salaries an individual can get. There is not a correlation between high paid active players and the winning percentage of a team. Just because you have really high players does not mean that the team's going to be more successful. A lot of more things come into the picture dealing with success of a team rather than somebody's salary. Unlike the MLB, excuse me, the NBA does have a salary cap, which the reason for the salary cap, it limits the team from going over a certain amount of money. The salary cap for the 2015-2016 season for the NBA is $70 million. They also, with that having a cap, they also have a minimum team salary, and the minimum team salary is 90% of the previous salary cap. So one good thing about having the salary cap is, yeah, they're putting a limit on how much the team can make, but they're also putting a limit on how much the team has to pay their players. The only way a team can go over the salary cap is when they re-sign their free agent. A free agent is somebody who has played and their contract is up and they become eligible to look around for other teams or increase their contract or whatever it might be. If a team signs its own free agent, then that's when it kind of becomes a little gray area and they can go over their salary cap a little bit. So that being said, if a free agent wants to switch teams, they're normally going to have to take a pay cut because the other team will not be able to pay as much as as much as the original team might be able to, just because they might not have enough in their salary cap. NBA players do receive bonuses. They receive a signing bonus just like MLB players. They also receive individual performances where it might be the MVP, Rookie of the Year, etc., as well as team performance if they make it into the postseason, which the postseason is kind of like playoffs for the NBA. Another big thing the NBA has is All-Star Weekend. It's the best of the best players come for a weekend and they showcase their talents. They have a lot of things going on, a lot of festivities. The three big things are the All-Star game, the rookie and sophomore game, and then the dunk contest. So any player that is on the All-Star game, so any player that wins the All-Star game for their team, because it's divided between the Eastern Conference and the Western Conference. So if the Eastern Conference wins the All-Star game, every player on that team gets a $50,000 bonus. For the losing team, they get a $25,000 bonus. So as long as you're on the All-Star game, you will get a bonus for being there. Same thing with the rookie and sophomore game. The winner, the individuals that win the rookie or sophomore game will receive 25,000, and the losers will receive 10,000. And then anybody that wins the dunk contest will receive a additional 100,000 on top of their salary. NBA players do get medical benefits, just like MLB players. They get a 401k and a pension plan. The big thing with NBA, which is extremely different from any other sports team, is that the NBA will match a player's pension by 140%. So whatever money the player puts aside for its pension, the NBA will match it pretty much and then give it a little bit more as well, which is something that not a lot of organizations do and not really any other sports teams do. The NBA also will provide health care for their players. They have trainers and everything for injuries. So they'll get free treatment, free ice, free whatever they need. They also have partnerships with different medical facilities where if they need surgery because of some injury, they can go through their medical insurance and the medical care of the NBA. And if it's a special surgery, they have a partnership with a surgical facility that will offer players half off the surgical price. So that being said, I'm going to look into how international players come into the NBA and everything, and the MLB. There are tons of international players in both of these leagues. The one for baseball, the one international aspect I'm going to look on is Japanese players. Japanese players play for the NPA, which is the equivalent of the MLB, but in Japan, of course. So before 1990, some Japanese players would retire from the NPB and try and pursue their career in the MLB because the salaries were so much more. So this led to not a lot of Japanese people being a part of the NPB. So in 1990, there was a de facto ban which declared that Japanese players had to play in the NPB and all United States players had to play in the NBA, or the MLB, excuse me. So no Japanese players were allowed to come over. That was then changed in 2000 by the Protocol of 2000 that said the NBP players could be traded to an MLB team in exchange for monetary compensation. That means an NBA or MLB team could sign a Japanese player, so they would sign them for a salary, but to get them to the MLB and away from the NPB, the MLB would also have to pay the NPB a certain amount of money to get that player out of that league and into the MLB. So naturally, that meant a lot of the Japanese players' salaries were a lot less than the United States, than somebody from the United States salary, just because they had to pay an additional money to get that player away from their league and into the MLB. Basketball also has a lot of international players. The main ones I'm going to look on are like Chinese players. In 1989, the Fédération Internationale de Basketball, which is the FIBA, took away the distinction between amateurs and professionals, making all players eligible for the Olympics. That might not seem like a big deal, but because all players were eligible for the Olympics, that meant all international players were also able to come to the NBA. That was part of that deal. So you would naturally get a lot of international players trying to come over to the NBA and kind of make their debut and get a higher paid salary than what they were, and everything like that. Uh, Through a study from Hoffer, he found that international players that went to a college in the United States had a positive coefficient and a higher salary, but not a statistical significant coefficient. So that pretty much meant that if an international player went to a school in the United States, they could possibly get more money than an international player that didn't go to school, that didn't go to a college that didn't go to a college in the United States. Um, Now to kind of summarize it all up, I'm going to talk about the fan critique. A lot of fans are very upset with the amount of money that NBA and MLB players are getting. Um, I mean, they're getting millions of dollars when somebody, as a teacher that has a career, is only getting paid $60,000 a year. So it's extremely different, and a lot of fans are kind of upset because the athletes they're just playing a sport. They're playing something they love, something that comes natural to them, and it's supposed to be for fun, and they're making millions of dollars on it. Well, according to Callahan, he says, it is the very fans who often grumble about the ridiculous wages paid to top athletes who in effect set their salaries. That was very powerful to me because that pretty much said that the fans are the ones that are making MLB players' salaries. If fans didn't buy so much merchandise or didn't go to the games or didn't pay the amount of money for tickets for each game, then their salaries of an MLB player wouldn't be that much. So if fans kind of stood up and wouldn't pay that amount of money, then that would see a correlation into the drop of salaries of MLB players. Um, Rob Manfred, who is the MLB chief operating officer, said, "Our player salaries are reflected of the strong revenue growth that has occurred in baseball under the leadership of Commissioner Selig." He's pretty much agreeing with what Callahan said, and the growth of MLB salaries is because of how much fans are paying for everything that goes into MLB or NBA. According to an article from Mullen, he says that some fans, in fact, think that not all professional athletes are getting paid too much money. He specifically looked at NBA players because the NBA players have a salary cap that limits them on how much money they can get in the maximum and the minimum. So he feels like a star player can bring in tons of fans and tons of media and have a lot of merchandise deals and everything, and he could be getting paid the equivalent of somebody who is just an average Joe player because they have to meet a team salary cap. So with that being said, Mullen believes that not all professional athletes are getting paid too much money, and he believes that some NBA players should get additional money because they are bringing in so much money to the organization that they're a part of. So this is my project. Thank you for your time. Have a good day.